Welcome everybody from north, south, east, and west of India and beyond. It's a day of celebration in many parts of India. For those in Kerala, happy Vishu. For those in Tamil Nadu, happy New Year. It's also Baisak in the northern and the western parts of India and Ambedkar Jayanti. So many wishes to all the various festivals that we celebrate in different parts of the world. But we're all here together to celebrate the launch of BeFantastic's fellowship, Kaleidoscopic Fields Across Mountains and Oceans. My name is Kamya Ramachandran. I'm the founder and director of BeFantastic. And with me today are my co-conspirators, Shivani, Shankar, and Jasmine D'Souza. So we founded BeFantastic in 2017. Actually, before we start, I also like to acknowledge our multiple partners who have really made it possible for us to make this happen today and for the next few months. We have the Goethe Institute and Pro Helvetia who have helped us bring in the German and the Swiss mentors and speakers respectively, including Pro Helvetia's contribution to today's speaker with Margaux Schwab. We have our Indian partners, both location-based partners like Archie Association in Ladakh, Unbox in Goa, and Bangalore Creative Circus in Bangalore. And our kind of knowledge partners, TCS Research, GUI, Jaga, Ajaib Ghar, and of course, we have the Locovore and Food Culture Days represented today as well. So thanks so much, everybody, for kind of really coming together and making this possible. We founded BeFantastic in 2017 with our first festival that we called Bengaluru Fantastic. We alternate a rhythm of making artworks that are layered with emerging technologies and showcasing them to further the curatorial message. Our second festival in March 2023 was titled Future Fantastic, and it took place in 3 locations in Bangalore, displaying 22 AI-enabled artworks that talked of climate change, along with workshops, dialogues, performances, and even a film festival. Kaleidoscopic Fields will take this effort further to ground itself in 3 ecosystems from the mountains of Ladakh, the urban tablelands of Bangalore, and the coastal landscape of Goa. This hybrid fellowship, which starts off today, we are super excited for this moment. Through peer exchange and knowledge sharing, as well as mentorships, select fellows will meet and develop their ideas face-to-face in a residency in these 3 locations. The fellowship aims to unpack the idea of climate change through the lens of food as a sensorial, emotional, and a deeply connected way of understanding the world around us. Made with small, interesting fragments of diverse disciplines, and you can see that within our 34 fellows, diverse cultures and viewpoints, we aim to set a framework that helps us make sense of it all when it comes together, much like a kaleidoscope does. We are blessed to have an eclectic crew of mentors from India, Germany, and Switzerland, from the fields of art, technology, and climate research. And we're also proud to have accepted all these 34 fellows who will journey with us through the coming months. To set context for the focus of this fellowship, and especially to help us craft the idea of food as a means of thought and action, as an experience of collective sharing, as storytelling and provocation, we have invited stalwarts in the field, Margaux Schwab, founder of Food Culture Days, Switzerland, and ChefTZac, founder of the Locovore here in India. I met Margaux while on a curatorial research trip to Switzerland through Pro Helvetia 2 years ago. And some of the most impactful experiences of that trip were conversations about food, with food, really to drive home larger points about society and politics. And these stories and conversations stayed with me a lot more than many others. So being inspired by that experience, I think crafting kaleidoscopic fields, as it were, I would like to welcome both Margaux as well as ChefTZac. You will find their bios in your chat window, so I won't take you through that. But I'd really like to welcome them and hand the forthcoming hour over to them. They will each present their words, and followed by that, there will be a chat between the two of them. And we will have some time for all your questions or some of your questions. As they pop up in your heads, please drop them in the chat and we will collect them and send it to our speakers. But if all your questions don't get answered, please don't worry. We'll find a way to do the same and send it back to you. But I now invite Margaux to take over.
Hello, everyone. I'm gonna share my screen first so I can, here you go, here. Okay, maybe, 1 second. Do you see it full screen?
Yes.
1 second, just because I want to put it up. Second. Trying to put it full screen. Well, I mean, I think that's going to be enough. Yeah. Does it work good for you, everyone? Do you see it well? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my name is Margaux Schwab. I'm the founder director of Food Culture Days, which is broadly understood as a platform for sharing of knowledge and know-how around food through culture and arts. But before I start talking about Food Culture Days, I also just want to situate myself like a little bit, because I believe that my personal story is very much intertwined with the project of Food Culture Days. So I'm half Swiss, half Mexican, and I've been studying and living most of my life in Vevey, which is the French part of Switzerland, like near the lake, like 1 hour away from Geneva. And I don't come directly from the cultural or art world. Like, I actually studied hospitality management or science of hospitality, because I was very passionate about this notion of hospitality and the politics of the table, or the potential of the tables. But back then, I didn't know what really, like, my family didn't come from an art background or cultural background. So hospitality was my creative way of expressing myself, right? So I believe this has been really important for, in general, shaping also like my path, my zigzagging path, but also Food Culture Days, because it really comes from this wish for creating convivial and hospitable places to talk about the world. After my studies in the school, I moved to Berlin, and I spent 10 years in Berlin, and that's where also I kind of develop the relationships and the sensibilities for the power of food when it's used as much as a medium, as a subject of research, or as a tool for resistance, right? Because Berlin has this very dynamic scene of artists, practitioners in the cultural field, gardeners, botanists, exchanging and working together, and I found that very very powerful to like those sensorial pedagogies and thinking or understanding through the body and the senses. So yeah, Food Culture Day was officially like born in 2017. And in Vevey, Switzerland. Why Vevey more than Berlin? You're going to ask me. It's because Vevey, geopolitically, it's very interesting, or very controversial also in the food politics, because it's a 20,000 citizen city, but it's also the headquarter of the global headquarter of the agro giant Nestlé. So when you talk about food and the politics of food, like this specific point in the world, in this very small city, has a lot of impact in the world. So for me, it made sense. And I also felt like kind of a call to talk about food from the situated point of view. So Food Culture Days Food Culture Days mission is really to share knowledge and know-how around food. Through multidisciplinary projects such as exhibition, intervention in public space, performances, collective meal, collective also cooking session, podcast publication. We are really at core very collaborative and participatory. With the aim to support environmental and social justice, taking really food as the lens through the one we can understand the world, basically. We also, through the years, we also developed other projects, which has been really constructive and impactful also for Food Culture Days, like this the diversification a little bit of channel of communication and projects. So we have developed during the COVID time, Boca Boca, which is a platform for an editorial online platform. And I will come back to it a little bit after. And then we also have field research on the territory, on different territories, and some also like long-term project on the territory. We also have a mediation program in the in-between years. And what is important really to understand is that all the projects that we do, they really culminate through the main project of Food Culture Days, which is the Biennale of Art and Socially Engaged Practices that are happening in the same city every odd number years. So we really understand Food Culture Days as a tool for reflection on the impact of agricultural, food, and environmental policies, both locally and globally. I would say even like, it's like, how can we talk about global dynamic from a situated and local perspective and imagine alternative narrative? What is very important in our methodology is the transdisciplinarity aspect. So we bring together people that think food, like scientists, researchers, and people that work with their body with food. Of course, avoiding dichotomies, right? I think that it's really like the borderland or the borders between thinking, doing, the body, the mind is actually very, very subtle. So I always was very passionate about putting everyone at the same kind of level of in terms of like how is knowledge produced, exchange, and how it can also circulate between geographies, bodies, and generations. Here, so at the core is like this transdisciplinary methodology, really like a call and a desire for creating convivial formats and artistic methodologies. So our vision is to rediscover the multiple meaning and function of food in daily life, as well as the tangible and imperceptible impact of our choices on the global environment. At a time when ecological and social like number of living organisms are affected, living organisms are affected by the different polycrises. Food Culture Days brings together activists, ecologists, gardeners, local experts, botanists, elders, and also other types of intelligence. Because we deeply believe that as cultural producers, they all engage in food as a research subject, as a medium, as a tool for convivial interaction, and as a way to connect with our environment. So it's very easily, when you start looking through the lens of food, very easily you start seeing all the relationship. I think food is really by per se and by essence relational, and that's this aspect that stimulates me the most. So here is just some images of around Vevey, like around some project also around agroecology. And this one I can talk about one axis that is specifically important for us also like in the last years is this question of food democracy. And then I will present the Biennale more in focus. But the question is really like why and how can we involve citizens in the governance of food system, right? Because we need transdisciplinary production of knowledge. We need like policies, but we also really need citizen to give a sense to like the direction where we're going also. It's something that we need all together. So I think that the democratization of food system, giving the citizen more power, cannot be limited to directing their purchasing action, like on an individual level. We need to involve them more directly in corporate strategies and public policy choices. In other words, we need to review the governance of food system within a specific territory. And then you will ask me why focusing on the territorial level, because I really believe that because of the gamble of power, the lobbies and the marketing industry also, the power relationship are a bit distorted. And this is why like I see a bit of potential on the territorial level. So yeah, we will come back a little bit to this format of the food democracy, but I will share now some images also of like specifically the Biennale here, which is happening in the public space of Vevey. It's our biggest project. And here I wanted actually to show you a little video. Let's see, where is it now, this video? Give me 1 second, because I think it's nice that you just, do you see the video? No?
Not yet.
Okay,
No,
1
not
second.
yet.
I will reshare my screen with the video here. Should work now. Now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, okay, this is Vevey. So in Switzerland, so here is in French, but like basically they talk about the program and the plurality of reality and experiences, different languages, different approach. We consider the territory as a space for confrontation between the global and local dynamic. Food culture is inscribed in a precise territory with geological, climatic, and social cultural dynamic that are in dialogue during the Biennale. Tangibly, food culture is very stimulated to give the speech to different types of knowledges from agriculture, gastronomy, and social science.
Moi, je pense que je reviendrai avec cette idée de collaboration à travers, du coup, de collaborer avec les champignons pour redécouvrir des territoires communs, un paysage commun. Et du coup, d'avoir ce truc. En plus, ce qui est intéressant avec le collier, c'est que du coup, comme on porte le collier sur nous, on accueille le champignon un peu sur notre territoire corporel. Et nous, en fait, en tant qu'humains, on est aussi sur le territoire du mycélium à la base, vu que le mycélium est partout sur la Terre et fait que notre Terre est vivable. Donc, je trouve que là, il y a un truc un peu intéressant de territoire, de multi-territoire.
Yeah, they had created this like a necklace which was fermenting during 2 days of the Biennale. And then we cooked it all together with the public.
É que o território, uma terra, ela pertence ao dono dessa terra em parte, porque o subsolo pertence ao governo federal. Então, até hoje, quando o governo está interessado numa exploração mineral, essa terra ela deixa de ser do dono e ela passa a ser explorável potencialmente pelo governo. E uma coisa que acontece no Brasil que é crítica é que, por causa da história colonial, a gente tem autóctones, a gente tem indígenas que ocupam terras, tradicionalmente pertencem a essas comunidades, e ao longo do tempo, algumas dessas comunidades, é uma história super complexa, mas para simplificar, algumas dessas comunidades, elas têm o direito a essa terra, e ao mesmo tempo, as comunidades quilombolas, que são dos revoltados, dos resistentes da escravatura, que ocupam esses espaços a partir do momento onde eles se revoltam, ou a partir do momento que existe a abolição da escravatura, essas terras também são de direito dos quilombolas.
Bei diesem kleinen Experiment erfährt man schon, dass es nicht ganz so einfach ist.
Here is in German,
so
sorry, in
viel
French.
Bedenken gibt, wenn man einen Acker machen möchte.
it was a project around the planetary wheat field that we did in collaboration with the schools of the region. And Alexandra Baumgartner is talking about the labor around it and the responsibility, like the cross-sectoral responsibility of the project.
Anderen Organismen man dabei möglicherweise stört. Aber
Who is in charge, basically?
Also ja, es braucht
when we work with ecological time and ecological living beings.
in verschiedensten Formen. Und ich glaube, das ist das, was vielleicht ein bisschen auf das Globale auch hinweist, ist, dass diese Prozesse, die schon im Kleinen ziemlich kompliziert sein können.
She's saying already in like a small scale, taking care of a planetary wheat field is complicated. So imagine on a global scale.
I'm also interested in foraging because this is the idea of wherever you go, you can find food, and it kind of goes against this idea of maybe having one physical space, and and it's kind of a knowledge that you carry with you wherever you go, and this idea that wherever you find yourself, you can actually just find fruit, like plants or ingredients around you that you can actually eat.
Okay, so let's go back to the presentation. I'm going to close this. Yeah, so as you could see, like the Biennale is really happening like a lot in the public space of Vevey, which is very important for us because it's also about this question of participation, accessibility. I think that comes also from my background in like hospitality and maybe sometimes not feeling welcome or completely at ease in galleries or in museums. So I wanted to go where people were. So we work really with a diversity of actors in the city, from museum, public space, hotels, cafe, restaurants, and we produce different formats in the city. One format that is really interesting is the Sobremesa Visual Art Exhibition, which is basically we put one visual art piece in places of conviviality and hospitality in the city. So one video in like a lobby hotel, one painting in like a historical restaurant or in the marketplace. So, and then people can walk around the city and experiment like this exhibition. Then there is like the project Boca Boca, which is our editorial project, which is really like a space where we deepen our understanding of certain thematic with our community of practice. So we invite the guest editors to think with us about certain topic that maybe we cannot reach or deepen so much during the Biennale because it's like a convivial and bit also celebratory moment, which is more about the being together and gathering together than really kind of more academic, also a little bit like a contribution between the people, right? So here it's also a place where we reflect on our own practices, right? Like we try to also be critical about what we produce, how we produce it, and how we can also make space for more sustainable way of artistic production. Using humor and sarcasm always as a good tool. Then I will just go quickly through like the collaboration also that we do. That's also where we met with Kamea, the art and science that we did in Zurich with the greenhouses, the greenhouse of the university. It was called Mobile Soil Dinner. So here it's like the Fungi Cosmology Project, Art and Science, 3 years research project between Brazil, Chile, and Switzerland, and the Alps in Switzerland, which was, again, a transdisciplinary research project involving artists, scientists, and mycologists, and the curators. And the goal was really to develop an alternative like language and methodologies at the threshold of those two or three practices. And my goal, let's say, it was also to bring the topic of food, right, and the agency of food or the potential of food in this art and science research. Yeah, I think that's it for now. We will be able to talk a little bit about maybe the 7 years of experience now that we're celebrating also like our 10th years anniversary, but officially the event is 7 years. We could talk also about some vision for the future with Thomas also maybe, and some opportunities for emerging artists that I see right now in the field of art and food-based research in the art, which it's really stimulating to see how big the community is now. And when I started, like, it was still a bit more peripheral. And also how, yeah, like the values that we bring in our practices, which are more connected also with ecological time, cyclicality, multi-species curating, and so on and so forth, which we will be discussing with Thomas a bit later. Here you go.
Should I take over?
Yes, please go ahead.
All right. Thanks, Margaux. That was very inspiring. And again, I think, I started the Locovore 3 years ago, and I always complain that I don't have too many reference points for what we've set out to do as a platform. And I think Food Culture Days is the closest I've come to really finding an organization and a platform that really champions work similar to the work that we're doing. So really inspiring. We are newer on this journey, so lots to learn from you, Margaux, and I'll get into some of those questions in a bit. So today I'm going to share my screen. Yeah, so you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I thought about the topic for this session, and I think especially given the context that all of you are fellows coming on this journey, I wanted to reflect on how my journey has been shaped by the experiences that I've had over the years, and how that has actually informed a lot of my work and how I have evolved and how now the Locovore has evolved. So to set some context, and again, just like Margaux said, my personal journey plays a big role in how the Locovore has been shaped as well. So I'll start with a video. The Bombay Canteen is a restaurant that celebrates regional Indian food using local seasonal ingredients through a menu that's constantly changing and trying to innovate on what Indian food is known to be. As a chef and as an individual, I'm someone who's really curious about how things work. And during my entire childhood, I tried to absorb a lot of information around me. And that process has kind of translated into how I function in the kitchen as well. Growing up, I loved to eat. And that's one of the reasons I really became a chef, so that I could surround myself with food. Just taste everything around me. And what happened over time, just constantly tasting food around me, was that I was building those flavor memories in my head. Before we opened the Bombay Canteen, my experience in Indian food was extremely limited. I remember very clearly on my first market visit, I saw vegetables and fruits which I'd seen all my life, but I'd never cooked with it before. As a chef, it's really important to appreciate and respect what's grown around me. That was my first real epiphany when it came to cooking with local produce. Right before starting out with creating our menu, what was important for me was to travel around the country. And I vividly remember that first trip. I just took 2 months off and traveled across the length and breadth of the country. I visited about 20 different places, immersed myself in as many food experiences as I possibly can. constantly registering those flavors as I taste them. What I did was connect with local people, try and get my way into people's homes, cook with them in their kitchens, visit the local markets wherever I went, and understand how the cuisine and the culture work together. It was just mind-blowing. I saw things, I saw vegetables, I saw recipes, techniques that I'd never seen before in my life. I didn't even know existed. Suddenly, I realized that as a chef, my purpose became clear, which is that all of these stories, these cuisines, these recipes kind of needed to find its way into a mainstream restaurant menu and kind of get a voice for people to really see, taste, and understand.
So this was from 6 years ago, and this is context setting until that point, which was the work that I did with the Bombay Canteen, so what is also happening as a result was, as I continue to travel across the country, and I've now been to 25 states in the country exploring food, I started noticing things that I couldn't unsee. And I started seeing the gaps in the system, the challenges in the system. For example, this is in Goa. In 2020, in October, I I did a food trip around Goa, and this is a community called the Ramponkers. And what they do is they have these large nets which are a kilometer long. So it's a community effort, and the practice has been going on for hundreds of years, and they've typically been very conscious about how often they go out to sea to catch fish, but because over the last several years they've had to compete with trawlers and bigger boats, they are now becoming more and more desperate. And you can see very clearly, and this is not, I've made multiple trips, the difference in catch between in just 4 years, because one, there's overfishing in general, but also this community especially is now going out to catch fish every day as opposed to twice a month. So and of course we know, I mean, everyone now knows that climate change and the climate crisis affects agriculture and farmers and small marginalized communities, especially in a country like India, more than anyone else. And this has deep implications across systems. I've had conversations and witnessed in person some of these really heartbreaking stories of farmers losing entire season's worth of harvest just because of an unseasonal rain or a hailstorm. We know our diets are going south. There's a lot of indigenous knowledge disappearing. This is again something I've been noticing and hearing from especially a lot of indigenous knowledge that rests with tribal Adivasi communities across the country, which are like the last bastions of a lot of the depth and intergenerational knowledge that we have, is slowly being forgotten because they have other pressures, they have other things to kind of prioritize. The next generation is leaving rural India for better opportunities. They have primarily been made to feel like their food and their culture are not aspirational enough for them to save and preserve. And of course, that also goes with like losing culinary biodiversity, which is happening at an alarming rate. This is again a photo that I just took of a few months ago at the airport, where we have avocado save puri and quinoa upma, which is again a sign of the times. I was recently in a small village in Jharkhand, and I was at the local market there looking for local ingredients. And apart from the staples like, cauliflower and onions and cabbage, I didn't really find anything that was local and seasonal to that place. Instead, I actually found rows and rows of broccoli, which was again not shouldn't have taken the place of local ingredients there, and then affecting everything else in that ecosystem. And we also know that consumers today are further and further pushed from the source of their food. Margaux, I'm not sure if you know this, but you can get vegetables delivered in 10 minutes or less than that in most cities in India today. And the same is being done with restaurants and home delivery as well. So, I mean, growing up, my grandmother knew the local fisherwoman. My parents had relationships that they built with people at the market. We had a much more connected relationship with food. Today, that we are getting further and further away from that. So about 4 years ago, I decided to leave being a full-time chef because a lot of this kind of dichotomy of what I was seeing in the confines of this glamorous restaurant and then on the road as I traveled kept kind of eating at me inside. I decided to leave to figure out how I would contribute and make impact in some way. That's what kind of led me to going on the path of figuring out how I would make impact. And that's what led to the Locovore. So the idea behind the Locovore was that along the way, while I traveled, I also came across incredible people and organizations and efforts happening to actually change things and make impact. But they were all happening in fragmented ways. There was no, I saw parallels in how people were doing things, but there was no synergy. There were no communities around this. And none of this was making its way into urban places which actually drive a lot of consumer behavior when it comes to food. And over time, over the last 3 years, we've evolved into approaching making impact through a few different lenses. One of them is, of course, storytelling, where we document stories lesser told that cover everything from themes from agriculture and climate change to identity. We also showcase a lot of recipes and document those. We also partner with small farmers and food producers across the country. Again, the idea is not that we can actually do the work on the ground, but we identify people and organizations that do and support their work. So we highlight their work through our platform. We kind of work with them in interesting ways, either featuring them in events or collaborating them in different ways to bring more value to the work that they do. These are again some of the many producer partners that we work with. We also do a lot of events across the country and sometimes abroad as well, where we bring some of these ideas to the forefront. And we've realized that engaging with people in person is really powerful as a way to nudge them to change behavior, be more aware, spread the word. And that's also really been a really exciting part of the work that we do. We've also curated at festivals and run events of like larger scales where we've brought an artistic lens to bring some of these ideas to larger audiences in interesting, fun ways. And we also do travel experiences, so taking people to the source of the food. After that experience in Jharkhand, I actually planned a food trip and just finished one a month ago, where we took people to Jharkhand on a 5-day trip to experience local food and meet the communities behind them. And we also take on larger projects, which could be research-based, which could be movement building, which could be working with communities directly. We've done a millet revival project. We've worked with wild food and tribal cuisines, and these projects range in size and scope. This is something that we are about to launch actually. So all of you are the first people to hear it. We have not even spoken about it on social media. So shh. But we are kickstarting local food clubs across the country. We realize that through our events, the most common response we get is that people really appreciate and enjoy the programming that we do, but then we disappear from that city or town, and we don't come back till much later. And I constantly get people reaching out to ask me how they can contribute or be a part of this movement. And so we found the answer to both of those solutions by actually giving agency and power to the people in those cities and towns, and creating these local food clubs that we facilitate and collaborate with, but are run by the locals from there, entirely free. And the idea is that you meet once a month around a potluck, and eventually it can go into more deeper and meaningful forms of engagement. We ran a test run last year simultaneously in 8 cities, where people gathered in public spaces, in culinary schools, and it was really, really powerful and special to see, if you just create the right conditions, how magic can really happen. And that's kind of what I want to leave you with, is that a lot of what my journey has been shaped by is just, following the feeling. I keep continuing to keep myself exposed to a lot of these experiences, and then, noticing and paying attention and being attuned to it, and gathering all those instincts that has led me to doing the work that I'm doing now. So that's it for my presentation.
Thank you so much, both of you. I think it's been amazing to see your personal journeys drive and open up this space. It's a space that all of us in this Zoom room hope to engage with a lot more deeply. But I would really invite you to go beyond your presentation in a fireside chat format for the next 15 minutes or so.
Of course. Margaux, I think one of my first questions is something that you had in your final slide, is that how have the last 7 years and the experiences you've had through the work that you're doing shaped how Food Culture Days has evolved, how your own understanding of the work that you're doing and the impact it has, how has it evolved over the last 7 years?
Yeah. I mean, I think, to be honest, more than anything, it was a lot of, sounds a bit cliche, but it was a lot of failures also, because it started Food Culture Day just as a one-off event, just like doing something also with people I admire the work also from Berlin, and I brought them to Vevey. And then it got such a big kind of resonance also, that I decided, okay, maybe it could be something that could also like continue. But I think I fall into the trap of growth, like in general, and thinking that more is necessarily better, and this kind of myth of growth and all the projection that modernity kind of can also put in our minds. So I think like there was this shift of like wanting to grow growing very fast, and actually not building the right or the best foundation for the platform to be sustainable on a personal level, but also on a team on an organizational level and on a collective level also. So for sure there was what I learned during those let's say 10 years or 7 years is like the importance of scale in general, and of rhythm, and therefore like connecting more, because food is by essence like alive, right? It's like it's relational, it's alive, it evolves, it's perishable, so it's a very specific also material to work with, right? If we think about more the materiality of it, but then like all the narrative also and the politics around it as also a very very potent, but it's alive. So I feel that if you really want to have an impact, make a change, you need to be sincere also of like what are the rhythms that this material and this topic also is asking you. It's like it's inviting you to actually slowing down and to really kind of like food invokes the intimate, the relational, the participatory, and it's like an invitation to connect to other rhythm, to growing otherwise. And I found through the 7 years that this was the most impactful when we started not wanting to grow necessarily in terms of numbers, in terms of projects, but more in terms of the relationship that we were creating with the project and the different entry doors that we could create with one project instead of doing 10. Things really shifted, like I have to say. And this year's Biennale has been really the best example of like scale. I wouldn't say scaling down, because at the end it's more relationship and it's more interaction and it's more conversation, but it's just like, yeah, thinking in more ecological temporalities and connecting with the rhythm of aliveness, let's say, and scale. Yes. That's what comes to my mind, just like as the first thing, because this year has really been a shift where I also was able to nourish myself through the project in a very different way than before. And I think when we talk about culture and art and social change, we also need to be sincere about what we are talking about, how we are doing our project, and I do believe that in our practices around environmental also topics, we need to lead also by example, or at least try to be sincere with those topics.
I'm glad you mentioned scale because it's something that I've been thinking a lot about in the context of our work. And just kind of thinking about it, reflecting, we've realized that in a lot of cases, scaling in the traditional sense may not even be the right way to go, because you're not, for example, a small producer that's centered around a local ecosystem, for them to scale might be harmful for the ecosystem, for different stakeholders. So directly just looking at scaling as in the traditional sense is probably not the wisest way to go in many of those situations. So I'm glad that, I mean, we see similarities there. You also mentioned impact, and I just want to understand, for us, we've struggled with making sense of impact. We're driven by impact. It's a single, I think, most common word that is used within our organization. But a lot of our work is, the impact of our work is intangible. And for example, we did a story, we published a story around a school called Tamarind Tree School in the Hanu a few years ago. And there's a school that was working with the local communities, and the kids were all from the villages nearby who otherwise couldn't have access to a proper school. And a lot of the education was centered around and had food as a central component in the curriculum and in their practice as well. And they were in need of funds. We didn't really do a fundraising campaign, but one of our readers read the story and raised funds for the school, and we wouldn't have even known about it or heard about it if it hadn't reached us in some way. But also, I mean, through a lot of the work that you're doing, especially with the Biennale and the editorial part of it, do you think about quantifying the impact or measuring the impact? Is it something that you consider?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because when you talk in your presentation, I was going to ask what is impact for us, like, and it's a word that can mean a lot of things, right? But still, we all want to contribute positively. So that's what I mean also by impact. But for me, the fact, for example, that we see the community of practice collaborating with each other, like calling each other to have project, and it really creates when let's say how I see food culture days community of practices, and also the citizen then involving themselves in certain of the project of the people that were in food culture days or on the territory also, is that it creates a community of trust and also of shared values, right? Like we are all in this community of practice interested in other temporalities of production of artistic creation. We are all maybe trying to move away from a very eye-centric approach to art, right? To like dive with other senses. We are all maybe like working with those practices, we try to deviate a little bit from the extractive models of artistic production. We are trying to think more about process and less about results, right? So there is certain shared value. There are also contradictions, and that's also very important, but there is already like, you know, that in this pool of people around food culture days, there is this shared understanding or sensibility. So that already is great, no? Like kind of to create global, local, transnational like solidarities to deepen our understanding of this very complex system that we are embedded in. I personally learn much better like hearing or sharing personal stories than through statistics, or even like reading. For me, it's like sometimes a little bit difficult. So I think through relationship, I think through stories, and I think through memories, right? And I think art is really great in that way, that they can create, they can manifest memories or stories with another language. And I think that's also where it meets with food, is like food also is a language, right? So it's a creative way to express yourself. And that's where I was also very happy that you, with your like, I was talking with a chef, no, and not only with artists, because most of the time I'm in discussion also with artists. I don't think they are the same like practice, but they share sensibility for sensorial pedagogies, a curiosity for the origin of things, the materiality of things, and the story behind the subject. So it's not so much about what is one or the other. It's like, where do they meet? And I see the practice around food and art also as a huge space for experimentation, because it's not new. Like, I mean, the topic of artistic research around food, it has always been there. Like, I mean, the art history with like Les Natures Mortes, and then like how we were seeing ourselves in nature, right? Like in paintings, like it really despite this, like how we see each other in relationship with like nature. Then there was the technological advancement with like the photography, and at the same time the technological advancement of food also, now with the refrigerator, with like the toaster, with like a globalized food. Like it has always been also captured by art, right? Like food. And then there was a land art, more kind of art kind of movement of like going in the territory and working with the territory. And then there were some artists also doing, okay, my art is my garden, or my art is my farm. And now there is a kind of another current, no, also that is about letting maybe less traces and working with the environment to let emerge kind of synergies instead of trying to control it. So yeah, it's not new, but there is for sure like a lot of new things coming up.
And one of the things you said about, getting artists and chefs in the same space leads me to my next question, which is that, a lot of your work is centered around collaboration as well. Do you have like kind of like a recipe for collaboration? Like, do you think about how do you think about creating the right conditions for collaboration to happen? I mean, a lot of cases, collaborations always can be magical, but it can also be messy. So what have you learned about holding those spaces?
Yes, especially between geographies and languages, and I mean, for me, the secret ingredient to collaboration is presence and availability, like a commitment to be present, and to listen to the realities of the other, because most of the time it's not about what we know, it's about what we don't know. And so you don't know when it's going to appear, you don't know when this new knowledge, this new tool is going to appear. It's through the process and through the presence along the process that you can then understand the interstice of knowledge and maybe enter them. So this is one thing. And then, I mean, I think it's more about collaboration is also a lot of like groundwork, like work behind the scene for collaboration in the front row, like then to appear as a good collaboration. Like, I mean, for the Biennale, I spent 2 years on the ground talking with botanic, ecologists, scientists, and like just really, okay, what are you working on? Why? How? Like very curious. That's also how it started, Food Culture Days, like without even calling it transdisciplinarity. I mean, I was just hanging out with people in their workplace, in the field, and listening to the stories, and then being like, but you know, this other person also told me about something that is similar, so collaboration is messy. Collaboration is a lot about also sensibility and fine tuning. Like I always say that is like, I know exactly intuitively also when I should connect during the month or during the processes of the curatorial process, when I should connect people, to not overwhelm them, to not like be too early in the creative process so they don't, you know, they find they are too much influenced by the other. So how do we stay grounded in our like local realities also, while at the same time being porous to external influences, and also kind of embrace an ecology of risk-taking, right? Because most of the time we also, or unfortunately, but a lot of projects come from the outside in, because we also need just to make a living, survive. So we accept things, even though maybe that's not exactly what we wanted to research or what we wanted to produce. And so I think it's also a lot about creating spaces. Collaboration is a way to create space, to think a little bit in another temporality and with more like maybe a mindset of risk-taking, because we have more time or resources to dig into those subjects. So yeah, that's what I can say about collaboration. But I don't know, what about you when you travel, like in the kitchens? Because it's also very, not this field of like, it's not easy, like to arrive at someone's kitchen, to arrive at someone's even like vineyard or like garden. I mean, you need to know that you don't ask, hey, can we hang out, talk about your field? No, you work with them during 2, 3, 4, 5 days, 1 week, and you talk about what you want to know through the work, through doing the work, right?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think just like showing that commitment makes a difference, and making the time and being present. What I've also discovered helps is to set the intention early on and communicate that multiple times over, and articulating that, which also sets the tone. A lot of the work that I do is rooted, I mean, we try to root it in empathy. So everyone involved to be empathetic to each other's needs and where they're at helps as well. And when you kind of make that as a core baseline for the work that you're setting out to do, I found that it really helps. Another question I had was about, balancing, and this is centered around just like, I'm not sure if, are you, where do you stand on being optimistic about change and impact, and how do you balance between holding space for grief and the things we're losing, but still building hopeful future-facing projects? What grounds you in that balance?
What grounds me the most is people working with the land, to be honest. Like, I think it's like when you're there, it's a sense of urgency and a sense of just like doing, and it's almost, you forget because you're just doing, like you're just kind of working with. So the resilience of the people working with seed, with plants, with soil, the knowledge they have, and to see how they really understand this collective intelligence from a more organic point of view. It's something that I find very humbling. And so I think, yeah, how can I say? I mean, for me, just the doing of anything is the key to not like falling into despair. I think the connection, the peer support, the peer review, that creating community to share the struggle, to share the questioning, and to confront contradiction and pain is really essential. And even also like digitally, I think I had really beautiful like exchange and collaboration and just moment of feeling supported, of feeling like I'm not alone in this, right? I think we all are seeking an emotional and an affective orientation right now. And there is not so much proposition that say that are very desirable. So we need to make it like our own, right? And that again, it's like this thing of scale is like 4 people, 5 people is already enough. Like is already like it can already feel like a support. So I would say is like find those places where basically the doing, the even the small steps, like the doing is actually bringing the senses back to something back in our bodies and less in our minds also. So yeah, I think in general, the reappropriation also of like skills that have been forgotten because of the globalization of our system, because of the extractive colonial system that is basically erasing like ancestral knowledge, that is erasing the very fabric of life and social relationship. Whenever we can reclaim this in even very like small scale, I think it gives you a sense of agency. And yeah, like even 2, 3 people in a community of practice can I think can unlock like a certain type of hope, let's say. Yeah.
I think for me, I'm faced with the same conundrum, and I always, and usually the despair is around the bigger picture, like is it's that existential question of like, is all of this work leading to anything meaningful? And whenever I feel that, I kind of zoom into those smaller local stories or the experience that I've shared in how impact has happened even on really small ways, like you've said, and also relying to some degree on a certain sense of conviction that, actually bringing people together and putting in the work and making the effort will translate to change along the way with the work that we're doing. I think I have one more question, and then we'll open it up to the audience's questions.
Something also that for me brings me like strength. Sometimes it's radicality. It's like not trying to like please like what is there, but like being very true with like the point of view that I hold. I think it is a moment of like actually needing radicality in face of what is happening. We all have different ways of like navigating the complexity of societal or cultural field, and I think we all agree with that. But I do believe that in the face of what is happening, not being afraid of being radical about certain basic values, basic rights that we thought were taken for, or that we took for granted. I think now it's the moment to be very vocal about our solidarities. And yeah, not too shy, like in front of intimidation, censorship, or things like that. Yeah, and the community like helps you to actually like hold this sometimes this radicality.
It's one of my favorite ideas of just being radical in approach. I love that you use that word. And again, I guess some part of it also, at least for me, I have to acknowledge the fact that I have the privilege to be radical. So I should, by all means, embrace that. My last question is that, if you have one piece of advice or insight for all the fellows here as they are going on this journey, what do you want them to carry with them? Mine would be just to, pay attention, fill your well, expose yourself to all these experiences, absorb, take notes, reflect, be present, and kind of let that lead you, which kind of was what I was trying to show through my presentation. What would yours be?
I would say leave space for silences. Yes. Yeah,
Great.
that's for sure. Like I also just this year in the Biennale, I also let space for silences in the programmation, and first you're scared of it, like you're like, oh my god, like what are people going to do in this time, and like, oh no, it's not full enough. I think it's really also a myth, like, and we really need silence and to also welcome the unknown. So for sure, like I mean, that's also something that meditation teaches you very well, so
Absolutely. So maybe we can open up to questions. Kamya, do you want me to read out the questions or you'll do
Oh,
it?
sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
You have access.
Yeah. So I'm going to scroll up. So one of the questions from Shivranjana is, in both of your practices, what do you imagine food futures to be like? Could you give an example of a way your work is moving towards that future? Margaux, you want to start?
For me, it's a lot about like food sovereignty, right? And like also like giving back agency to peasants to actually make their own decisions and yeah, apart from the extractive colonial toxic system. Like so I do believe it's possible to create like alternative economies on a more small scale level, or I hope that it's possible. But yeah, it's a lot about that. It's a lot about food sovereignty and just really fighting for a dignity also of the people that are feeding us. So for me, it's really about centering this conversation around food, around peasants and around peasants' rights, around access to resources, access to land, and then also when that is taken care of, which I think it's already a big work to make the consumer or the civic society understand that the conversation should be centered around that. Then there is a question of dignity, of like what type of what is enough, what type of life do we also wish, do we imagine, do we desire. But yeah, I would say this is the thing for me.
I think in my work, when I imagine food futures, there's obviously the dystopian view and the idealistic view, and there seems to be this constant pull and push towards getting there. And so for me, the way in which our work is moving towards that future is to kind of lean into this transdisciplinary approach of working across with different stakeholders in the system, using different means, from storytelling to creating communities and nurturing them, to partnering and collaborating with food producers and organizations that are working at the grassroots level. All of that is kind of trying to nudge the system in little ways towards a better food future, I'd say. Margaux, what exactly does food research look like for you, and what are its components? I think it's a very broad question, but feel free to.
No, it's interesting because it's a question that comes often. I mean, food research is really like kind of the history, the genesis of ingredients, of plants, of seed, of soil. Is like colonial history around ingredients, the way they travel. So for me, that's the more like academic research, let's say, like, so being in the books, researching really like the history or of food or movement around food, or how politics are shaped. So depending on which lens you want to take, if you want to research around food and agriculture, maybe you research around how are the politics around agriculture in your country, in your region are done. Why is a specific territory shaped the way it's shaped? Why is this crop like here and not another one? Then you can look into the health also, like food and health. So how are hormones like interacting in your body? And then there is also, of course, the experimentation around food, which is really like in the kitchen, in the lab, which I think a kitchen is always a lab, and the lab is always a kitchen also. So I see like art and science also, like not so, and food not so like far away from each other. But yeah, research is for me a curiosity around a specific topic, and you can engage with the materiality of it and try different taste ingredients, like different. I think through the combination of flavor, you can also understand diversity in general. Like I think I had this experience, a really strong experience. I still remember in my mind of like trying different types of fermented food for the first time in my life, and trying it with other type. I love to just put things together, like different taste. And I was like, wow, it's like my brain is just expanding in terms of like, this is like taste diversity, and it's the same thing like in general in a macro level, but without having to put words on it. So yeah, I mean, it depends which field you come from. Research can be very embodied or very academic. I like to combine both most of the time. And research for me is also about personal stories. Like that's also a type of research.
I'll move into the next question because I think your answer has been very. Kami, are you intervening?
We don't hear you.
Yeah, we are 15 minutes over time. So just be
maybe a
cognizant
couple
of-
more questions.
Yeah, if we can just.
Sure. Margaux, are there any questions that you wanted to answer? If not, I can pick the next question.
I'm not on the chat now, sorry.
So the next question is, what is the balance between experimentation and novelty in food and using local ingredients? And this is something that I've had to address through the last 10 years of my career as a chef at the Bombay Canteen, and also now through our work. I think I've always found that it's important to find a sweet spot between the two, between relying on tradition and looking at modernity and experimentation and novelty, especially when some of these ideas need to be translated to the current generation of, say, millennials and Gen Z, where you have to, and sometimes a lot of this is really in how the stories or the content or the experiences are packaged. And that's where, in the packaging is where the novelty and the experimentation comes in. But a lot of the stories are often rooted in, especially for India, in a lot of traditional contexts and what and how that has implications on what's happening today. But Marco, you have any thoughts on this?
Sorry, my phone was ringing on the computer. I'm not a chef. People expect me to be a chef. People expect me to be a foodie. People expect me to be a farmer, like everything. No, I'm not. So it's a little bit more difficult for me to talk about that. But I think it's also what you say. It's about acknowledging like the origin, the history, and the heritage also of something. And it can only be good. I mean, it can only be a good thing to through food to connect back to other temporalities, right? So there is this word, like this sentence saying like nothing is created, everything is like kind of transformed, no, all the time. And I think food is also this very like on the cellular level, on the biological level, it's just the transformation of matter, like constantly. And food is the first like main humankind innovation, no? From a anthropological also perspective that allowed us then to carve space for to do other things, including creativity, right? So I think the more we understand where we come from, the easier we can also navigate like complex time to understand like where we want to go. Yeah.
Any other questions? Kamya, you want to take over?
Just, I guess a final wrap-up thought from each of you would be great. And yeah.
So for me, it's just that I think all of you are presented with a great opportunity. I'm excited for you. And I hope that this conversation has kind of triggered some thoughts or inspired you in some way. And I think BeFantastic is doing a fantastic job of kind of curating this and kind of facilitating mentors like us to kind of guide you along. So happy to be here and really excited we did this. And thanks to Margaux for being such a co-host.
For sure. Thank you so much. I mean, it's always, I forget each time how important it is to, yeah, kind of connect with people from the field, also from other geographies, because there was a time I was inspired by my peers to build food culture days, and now I'm happy that I can also like kind of share also my experiences and the tool I builded for food culture days. For me, it's really like I'm really passionate about like language in general, is like what is happening at the frontière, at the borderland, of the limitation of our languages. And I see the mouth as a very potent symbol for for language and translation. And like mouth, when you think about it, like we do so much with the mouth. We eat, we breathe, we talk, we protest, we love also, we kiss. So I think it's really about reclaiming the power of the mouth in very various way, to understand like how could we as cultural practitioners really like contribute to a culinary but also a planetary turn by creating proximity with our foodscapes and our food system. So yeah, that's really something that is in my mind at the moment, because I really do believe that language is shaping reality in general. Like the words we use to talk about our reality really matters. The story we use to tell stories matter. And so I think the story of food is a very beautiful one, and is part of our shared history. So I'm excited about that.
Thank you so much, Margaux and Thomas. I think what today's session really tells us, that while food is being used as a lens, it is so expansive that you can get lost even within that framework. While it might seem that the word is limiting, it is actually all expanding. And but at the same time, I think this idea that you've brought out, that it is so deeply connecting of communities across the world, or even communities in a particular locality. So the ability for food to kind of transpire and go beyond these boundaries and limits are really something that you've brought to the fore. And we hope that we can open up in this fellowship. For those of you who didn't get questions answered, or who have a million questions swarming in your head, please hold on to that, because that's exactly the point of this conversation. It's not the end, it's just the beginning. And we'll be happy to find ways in which we can reach out to both Margaux and Thomas and kind of, keep them abreast of the work that we are beginning to do with their blessings. For all the fellows who've joined us, please come back to the Zoom room in 10 minutes. We have like the continuation of our launch session for you. For people who are not our fellows and who have joined us, thank you so much for landing up, and please stay abreast of what we are up to. Your energy is equally important to what we do.